following program is in English.
Thank you. You're tuned in to L'chaim, to life, with your host Morris Klein, who just happens to be my baby brother.
Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem. Welcome back to L'chaim, to life, Jewish life and more. And let me tell you, last night's 120th JNF anniversary virtual Gala event was all about Jewish life and Jewish life in Israel. Hats off to JNF Australia. I thought it was an inspiring 120th JNF anniversary with a great lineup of inspiring guests. Israel President Isaac Herzog, no stranger to the Australian Jewish community, Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, Treasurer of Australia Josh Frydenberg, JNF Australia CEO Dan Springer, former Israel Ambassador to the United States Ron Dermer, who was interviewed by former Israel Ambassador to Mexico, El Salvador and Australia, Jonathan Pellet. They were sensational. I can't tell you how much I was impressed with Ambassador Dermer, as I was with the next guest, Israeli actress, writer, producer and activist Noah Tishby. Sensational. Loved her, love her work, love her activism. Closing out the gala was talented comedian Elon Gold, followed by the Ramat HaNegev school children singing Hatikva. Very moving, the children of the new Israeli Chalutzim. I can tell you that registrations for the event exceeded last year's with an estimated 6,000 blessed viewers. I'm told that the event will be sent out to all those who registered. I'm not quite sure when it'll be available publicly for everyone to check out and to support the JNF's great work. All right, enough with the intro. It's over to Morry Frenkel with his guest Michelle Bloom. You're tuned into L'chaim, to life, Jewish life and more on 92.3 FM, 3ZZZ. Stick around.
Michelle Bloom is a seasoned commercial senior executive with expertise in leadership, culture, talent and organisational transformation. She has worked with Australia's largest organisations in developing and delivering solutions to assess and build value-driven leaders and cultures. Her work has supported organisations to evolve their approach to risk management, including assessing and developing the intangible aspects of ethics, psychology, and political systems in order to decrease an organisation's systemic risk. This enables organisations to minimise their intangible risks, creating competitive advantage and ensuring reputation, brand, and market value. Michelle Bloom is the Ethics Centre's Director of Ethi-call, the focus of our chat today. Michelle, welcome to L'chaim.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Morry. Delighted to be here.
Perhaps you could begin by giving our audience a brief general history of the Ethics Centre and what services it offers to the community before we go on to discuss the Ethi-call aspect in more detail.
Absolutely. So the Ethics Centre is a not-for-profit organisation that has been in existence for 30 years. So people may have known it as the St James Ethics Centre, so we rebranded a number of years ago. So our purpose is really to bring ethics to the centre of everyday life. So how we do that is in a number of ways. So we have a number of public programs that we've set up and are involved in developing and the ongoing implementation, such as primary ethics, which is an alternative to scripture in primary schools in New South Wales. We also run a number of sort of publicly available events like the Festival of Dangerous Ideas. So we've had to pause that obviously because of COVID, but our plan is to run that again next year. We also run things like IQ debates. So people may remember Stan Grant's famous speech on racism. So that was at one of our events, for example. So there are publicly available events that we do, and we also do a lot of, sort of thought leadership in that space. So Simon's quite active. Simon Longstaff, our director, is very active in talking about things like, vaccination and employees and employers' responsibilities and obligations in regards to vaccination and returning to work. But the part of the organisation I run is the consulting and leadership services. And so we work with corporations to really embed their ethical capital. So their ethical capital being, how aligned they live culturally, their purpose, values and principles, and how do they create social value for the communities and the stakeholders in which they operate, and how do they lead through complexity? Because let's face it, the environment in which organisations are operating is increasingly complex, and leaders, really need to make good, ethical, sound decisions in that complexity. So we build that capability. And then also I have the great privilege of running Ethi-call, which is a free service, which is what we're here to talk about today. Yes. Free service to everyone globally. Most of our people who use the service come from Australia, but we have calls from overseas quite regularly. And it's a free service to help people, really work through a dilemma, an ethical dilemma, or a decision they're trying to make where they feel stuck, where two values are clashing and it's not clear about the road ahead. So what we do is provide a free 1-hour counselling service with a counsellor one-on-one to help people really work through that and find the best solution for themselves.
It's a tremendous concept. Can you tell me what was it that interested you in the Ethi-call concept?
So I began my career working in psychiatry and mental health. And so obviously that had a basis in, sort of psychology and those types of concepts. And I thought that had great value. But there was a kind of piece missing for people who were stuck with a decision. And it wasn't necessarily a mental health issue, but it was a kind of a values clash or a decision where there was no right way of making a decision around this, and what was something that could help people navigate that space. And for me, ethics is really about living a meaningful life. So how do I, have enough self-awareness about what I value and make decisions in alignment with those values and what I think is important. And so what I saw, in mental health was people really struggling with purpose and understanding their values and making good decisions based on those kinds of concepts. So Ethi-call really fills that gap. And that's what really interests me and excited me was it's a philosophical counselling service, which is quite a different offering and a gap in the market from a psychological counselling service, and both are great, but both have very different kind of underpinnings and ways of helping people work through where they're stuck.
I believe you've got about 20 counsellors operating there. What are the qualifications that you look for when putting a person on?
So we did an expression of interest towards the end of last year, primarily to the primary ethics teachers who are also volunteers. And what we look for in terms of people who applied to become an Ethi-call counsellor was things like, life experience. So people who have come across, and had, many different experiences, from travelling to dealing with different cultures to, had children and worked in different places and different contexts. Because primarily one of the key capabilities we look for in a counsellor is that non-judgmental position.
Yes.
So people can come to us from any walk of life, any religion, any sort of worldviews, and we accept everybody. So we're not in the business of judging. So that's a really critical skill. Another skill is we don't give advice, which is requires us to listen very well. And so that's another skill. And that's actually where most of our counsellors fall down, is that they want to give advice.
Yeah, it'd rule me out, I can tell you that.
So it's so we look for people who can listen well and reflect back what they've heard.
Yeah.
And the Ethi-call counselling process is a very structured process. It follows a series of questions. It works through a number of philosophical lenses to explore the issue from different perspectives. So we look for people who can, sort of listen well, reflect back well, and, ask questions that really, support someone to explore their dilemma from, new ways and new perspectives. So that's a really key capability. And then when they go through our training process, so they have some training initially in philosophy to understand, the basis of the approach and the basis of the questions that we ask in the process. Then we have some rigorous face-to-face sort of development in terms of actually running the process and experiencing that. And then people have to do a number of, mock calls, if you like, to show that they're capable of executing on the Ethi-call process. So it's quite an extensive commitment for someone to from both sides in order to be qualified to be one of our callers. So it involves a number of different elements, and we have quite a high standard in terms of the counsellors who do get through. So we're delighted. We've got 11 new counsellors now, so we've been able to increase our capacity, to meet the demand. We've had a massive increase in demand over the last sort of 3 to 4 months, as you can imagine, with, a lot of Australia in lockdown and a lot of, sort of people feeling stuck and having decision paralysis given the complexities of, all the different decisions we need to make now.
I'm interested to know if you can envisage a problem for which there isn't a choice of solutions.
Oh, look, I think it's, the beauty of the Ethi-call service is it's really about helping, that caller find the best solution for them and their circumstance. So what we're not in the business of is, helping people, with our advice around what they think, they should do. I had a call. I'm a counsellor myself, and I had a call last week, and the caller was asking me, "So what do you think I should do?" And it's like that's not what we do. What we do is we help people find the best answer for them. So often, people don't get to an absolute decision by the end of the call, but they've certainly got next steps, and they certainly, have progressed their thinking in terms of what they need to do next. So I don't know if there is a a situation where there isn't a solution, but I think what Ethi-call does is helps people find the best solution for them.
I believe that a number of companies and industry associations promote Ethi-call to their employees and members.
Yes.
And I imagine that as we're approaching the end of lockdowns, hopefully, there are calls from employers about making vaccination a condition of employment in their businesses, and indeed also from employees being asked to vaccinate as a condition of employment.
Yes.
This raises the issue of trying to balance public safety versus personal freedom.
Yes.
Is part of your role to point out misconceptions around vaccinations that may be held by the caller, and how do you present this information without appearing to promote one aspect of the problem?
So part of the Ethi-call process is really about checking in around laws and codes and statutes and things like that. So that's a key part of the process. So, have people got the right information, and are they from sources that are trusted sources? So that's part of the questioning. So people, are encouraged to go and explore those aspects, which they may not have had prior to the call. Yeah. The other thing we challenge assumptions. So people often assume information, and it's not until you have time to kind of step out and reflect, and somebody asks you a question about the assumptions you're making, and have you checked that out, and have you asked that person, or have you actually explored that people recognise that their biases come in. And so what we do is really kind of challenge bias when we hear it, and part of the process is about sort of unlocking that bias. So that's a key step in the process about doing that. So what we won't do is offer a view on that, but we'll certainly ask the questions for the caller to really get clear and explore those kind of biases and legal aspects often to their dilemma.
I believe the Ethics Centre relies on donations to provide all of its services. So I recommend interested listeners log on to the Centre's website if you wish to support its work. That address is ethics.org.au. Michelle Bloom, Director of Ethi-call at the Ethics Centre, many thanks for joining us on L'chaim and providing an insight into the valuable service you and your co-counsellors offer the community, particularly during such a difficult time for many people. Very much appreciated.
Great. Thanks, Morry. Thanks for having me.
Before we go, I should mention that the Australian Jewish Association's weekly Zoom started up again tonight after all the Chagim, with another excellent guest, Itmar Marcus, with his Palestinian Media Watch. Right, you'll find in about 15 minutes to half an hour a recording of tonight's L'chaim program at 3zzz.com.au. Click on the down arrow in the Listen to a Show square and scroll down to the Jewish group. You'll find it there. Links to YouTube recordings of tonight's interviews will be posted to the L'chaim and Morris Klein Facebook pages tomorrow. Please check out the other two programs that make up the Jewish group here at 3ZZZ. The Hebrew Hour, Shabbat Shalom, 3 p.m. on Friday, and the Yiddish Hour, 11 a.m. on Sunday. If you'd like to contact us here at L'chaim, our email is lchaim3zzz@gmail.com. For only $16, please consider becoming a member of the Jewish group here at 3ZZZ. And for seniors, it's just $11. Again, click on 3zzz.com.au. Many thanks again to Team L'chaim, Dr. George Banky, the executive producer, Dr. Morry Frenkel, and Jeff Deegan. So thank you for tuning in, and please join us again next week on L'chaim. My name is Morris Klein. I'm Yisrael Chai, and peace.